Hey there, Portia here. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Portia Raw and Real. If this is your first time here, welcome. If it's your coming back, welcome back. Thank you so much for tuning into the conversations that we have after some episodes of Portia that made us go, ooh, we need to keep these jokers around a little bit longer. We have some more we got a little bit more unpacking to do. And that was surely the case with our conversation about recovering from divorce. Learned a lot about three amazing women, and they all had something really incredible, different lessons to share about what they would tell their divorcing selves years ago and what they would share with women who are going through the process now. So I want to reintroduce you to Lori Hanford. You may recognize Lori from Later Daters, the Netflix special, executive produced by the Michelle Obama. So obviously she has recovered nicely. I'm still a little salty that you didn't tell me there were some options out there, but we'll figure that part out. I'm working on that. We're working on that. But recovering well and likes to share her story. And then there is Mercedes Smith, a mother of two, twice divorced, uses the lessons from her marriage and divorce to help empower other women, particularly younger women, because Mercedes, you were married in your 20s, right?
Yes.
And then we also have LaNise Thrasher, life coach and author of a book called It Takes Courage. Also taking the lessons from divorce and sharing them with women and men, but a lot of women, trying to rebuild after a divorce. And when we say rebuild, we're talking emotionally, spiritually, financially. That whole self-esteem is shot.
Yeah.
Yes, it's really shot. Can we just go
ahead?
Have at it. It was so shot. I mean, I did a Mel Robbins segment, and I didn't know how broken I was. Like, I didn't know, like, what was wrong with me. You know what I mean? It takes, for me, it took everything away from me. Was I good enough? I mean, what did I do wrong? I mean, you know, why
How
me?
did I get here?
Like, and you know the roles that you have played, because it takes two, you know, to get a divorce. But
Absolutely.
it's just, I was like so broken and so lost. I mean, I didn't even know who Lori was anymore. Like, it was, I don't know if you can call it like you was just in space. Like, this was really not happening in real life.
It feels like an out-of-body experience.
It
Mercedes,
was.
would you agree?
I do. I definitely agree with you. I had to do a lot of rebuilding. That was one of the things. And then
Because you were not working when you were married, correct? Or you were the
I did.
Your husband, or now husband, was the primary provider, right? That always makes you tickle.
Yeah, because
there was some financial dependence.
Yes, very wealthy, so it didn't matter. However, the wanting your own independence, I came from a hardworking family, so all I know is to work. I know how to get my own money.
Right.
Before I got married, I knew how to get my own money. I had my own money. But what happens is, my first marriage, very wealthy. You know, I didn't have to work, but I did work. And then control came in. He didn't want me to work. I stopped doing that. But then one thing that I learned, I went from one marriage to the next. And that codependent thing, you realize that you didn't heal during your transition.
May I ask, how much time between the first divorce and the second marriage?
It was about a year and a half, 2 years.
Wow.
So
Okay.
all my 20s. Yeah. So I literally went right on into the next thing before I even got healed, because that person was pressuring me, this is what I want. And I was like, I don't want that. But then I gave in because I'm a wife. Like, okay, this is what you're supposed to do. I don't want to be with anybody else. I don't. You know, everybody had that little phase. I didn't get that phase. I didn't never get to date. I never knew what it was like to date different men.
Right.
I never had the opportunity. So
Because you were married, how old were you when you got married the first time?
21.
Wow. Yeah.
So I was freshly, went to college, got my bachelor's degree and everything, and sure enough, got married, well off, lived a different type of lifestyle that most 21-year-olds wouldn't live. I built my first home at 22. I got my first baby. You know, like, I was living the American dream, but that was not really the reality of it, right?
So that's a lot to recover from. I mean, just as a girl, really. I mean, 21, you're grown, but you're still a girl. So then growing, there was so much growth for you and change.
And I lost my dad before I got married the first time.
Oh.
My dad promised that he will walk me down the aisle, and then he he died 25 days before I got married.
Ooh, so there was a lot there beyond divorce.
Way, and you don't realize that you don't give yourself time to heal before you get into the next thing. So all my life it was more like, okay, and then I'm thinking financially, now I have the money to help my second person, and now everything's going under. So now I have no money. Now I gotta depend on you now. So now it just flipped. Now it seemed like I was going through the same thing.
That's a lot for any woman, but particularly a woman in her 20s. LaNise, you are life coach.
Yes.
You've clearly recovered, and even wrote a book called It Takes Courage.
Right.
And that was based on some of the journaling you did as your healing process, right?
Absolutely.
You've been divorced for how long now?
Been divorced 10 years.
Okay, understood.
10 years.
So how did the lessons you experienced from divorce turn into, I mean, because you weren't a life coach when you were married, were you?
Not
So,
at
I
all.
mean, that's recovery. How did that happen?
Well, honestly, it was all God. It was all God. God was like, I need you to help other women heal. I've healed you. I need you to help other women. And so that's how I got into it. I started taking, training so that I could become a life coach, and here I am today. And actually, your story about jumping into another relationship is something I work with my clients about all the time, because I don't want them to do that. Because I'm like, hey, let's take a second and
You
let's,
need to
let's
reintroduce
heal.
yourself
You need to
to
learn
yourself.
who you are first,
Yeah.
and then let's jump
That's
out there.
important.
So I'm really glad that you shared it, because a lot of people do that. And before you do that, I'm always like, hey, can we bring it back in a little bit? Can we talk about a couple things? And I have a program where I actually teach them how to heal. And I called it the Pause Challenge, because a lot of times you don't take that time to pause. The world is so noisy that you're just jumping here,
Yeah.
and you don't sit with yourself.
And
you
so
don't
much of
actually-
it is trying to go and fill the void.
Yes.
That
Yeah.
the husband, there was this companionship, there was this constant. You're going to chuckle every time I say husband. Get used to it, because I can't. I don't like saying ex-husband. Ex-husband sounds so like,
I love husband.
and my
though.
husband and I, we are raising two amazing boys, so it's not.
I like the husband. I love
Because he
that.
was
He was
your husband. So that being said,
I love that.
you.
God.
You're better than me. I don't claim them.
I can understood.
Claim 'em.
And that's part of it.
That's part
Everybody
of your
has their
process,
own
your journey.
experience.
Yes.
The biggest, there's not a biggest mistake, right? Because it's so personal for everyone.
Everybody.
But the biggest correction that you try to help women work through for each of you, right? Because we've all had some friends who are going through it, and they come and they pull you aside, hey, things aren't working out. What's the biggest correction, the biggest piece of advice you end up giving women trying to get recentered?
I would say, for me, when I was going through mine, be present in your marriage. Know your finances. Know what's happening in your household. You know what I mean? And that was the main thing for me, is when you're so dependent on somebody, you know what I mean, that you give up everything.
Yeah.
Okay, I trust you. You do this, and I'll do the kids. You do this, and then when it all collapses, you're standing there like, what am I doing? And I'm going to go back to the husband. I did have a good ex-husband, who made sure that we were good through the transition. So I cannot take that away from him.
That's
good. So I was able to regroup, but know your financials, know what's going on in your marriage, because I think so many times women, we prepare for the marriage, for the wedding, but we don't prepare for the marriage.
Yeah, that's what I tell everybody.
Yes.
I promised, I said, God, if my marriage can't work, please show me what I can do to help others.
Yeah.
And that preparation component is so important, especially, it costs a lot to get divorced.
Yes.
It does.
And not just financially, but
Emotionally.
there are all kinds of other implications that can come up, right? What do you tell women, particularly since I have to imagine the women who are coming to you are younger, since you're the youngest at the table,
I get a lot of older people,
you
too.
do get older, really? So
Because of the things I've gone through.
I gotcha. I gotcha. About rebuilding your self-esteem, though, because that's the biggest hit, right? For me, that was feel like I must be a huge failure, right? Because it turns into I can't keep a husband.
I wouldn't necessarily say you can't keep a husband. I think society.
I mean, that's what I was thinking then.
No.
I'm sure
in
I
those
can
moments,
make this work now.
No,
but that's how you feel.
those
I mean, that's
moments,
I don't know what it felt like that.
I felt like that.
too.
I felt like that because I was in my 20s, going on to a second, you know. And the problem is, you hear the backlash of the other person, like, oh, nobody gonna want you. You got 2 kids, 2 different baby daddies. It's not a baby daddy, they're ex-husbands, right? But then now, well, it's 2 failed marriages, but is it really failed marriages? Or is it that God realized the time is up because both situations.
There's 2 seasons that changed.
Yes, and I think people hold on to what everybody else is thinking.
Yeah.
And it's like, I got so much more life to live. I don't care if you're 60. If it's time to go, it's time to go.
Yeah.
Sometimes you get stuck in a place where you know y'all should have been ended 10 years ago.
And don't do it for the kids.
Yeah, and then they say, I'm doing
it
it for the kids.
LaNise,
Don't
how
do
much
it.
harder is it for the women or men who stayed longer? Like, how much more collateral emotional damage is it when somebody, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's hard. It's really hard. I've worked with clients who have stayed too long, like 10 years, and they're like, what in the world? Like, they don't even know themselves. And and when they come to me, their confidence is like a negative 2,000. Like, everything possible is in their head. I'm a failure.
Is it because they were like, I'm trying to stay for the kids?
Yes.
Meantime, the kids are watching, fussing, and
Exactly.
fighting, and all kinds of
Toxic
other
stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I've told one client, I was like, you are doing this for your daughter so that they don't do what you've done. You are teaching them a valuable lesson right now, and they're watching you. And I have one client where her children are literally watching her, and they're like, I'm proud of you. Because they're seeing what steps she has taken for herself. They see that she's not the same person that she was when she started. She has this glow about her. Like, her friends see it. They're like, what are you doing? And she's like, I got a coach. And she's walking with me through it. And so it's an amazing thing, but a lot of people, they're hurting, and they just don't know. And also, hurt people.
Yeah.
So if you're hurt, you're just hurting more people. And I've seen that where I'm like, you really need to take a step back because you're hurting people.
How important is it to minimize, I mean, like, talk about what you're feeling, right? And we're big advocates of therapy on the show, but to avoid the trauma bonding, avoid the, he did this and then he did, and sort of going back over and playing the tape of how horrible things were. Because I feel like that keeps a lot of people in traction.
I'm gonna let you
No,
go.
because we both like, because
let
you know what? Something I learned in therapy is because my brain loops, right? You can keep playing the same old victim.
Yeah.
You can play the victim role, or you can play the conqueror role. And like, I was going back to my friend Shamana Curtis. She was like, you're always playing the victim role over and over and over, and this and this. But why don't you try, if your brain is going to loop, why don't loop like, I am great. You know, everybody can't go with you to the next level.
My therapist,
God
I
is
had a
prepared.
therapist say, you got to change the tape, baby.
Yeah, because
got to
you
change the
play that
This tape
tape,
is so-
and it keeps you down. And once I start changing the tape, everything started blossoming.
Mercedes, what were you?
One thing that I said, I think outside of the trauma bonding, I think women that are nurturers, because I'm a nurturer, you're a nurturer. You know, we've all been wives, right? We get caught up in, you can change. I see the greatness in you. I want to help mold you in that direction. And that's not your place. And I think we get caught up in that, and that's how we end up in the loop. Like, hey, well, I'm bonding with you through trauma because I know what it feels like when we didn't have nothing. And then you don't realize that the time you were supposed to help when you were supposed to help, and now it was time to go. No one told y'all to go to that step. You guys did that on your own.
Right,
That's good.
Yeah, that was not your assignment. LaNise?
Yeah, I mean, it's all these things are right? But the negative thoughts play in your head times 50, right?
Yeah.
So I read somewhere you have about 70,000 thoughts per day. So you are telling yourself things day in and day out. And I always say, your mind doesn't know the difference between you're having a bad day and you're just having a bad moment. Your mind doesn't know the difference. Your mind is like, oh, you're
doesn't
just
know
feeding
how long
this.
this is gonna last.
And it's like, no, like, that was a bad moment, but your brain is just hearing it and like, okay, you're a failure, so you're a failure. So you have to stop saying that and replace it with something positive about yourself. You have to find something positive. It could be, I look great today, or I got up this morning,
And
I
you
worked
do.
out, I did these things this morning. So that's what you're putting into your brain, and you have to continuously do that. Just say to yourself, I can do this. It's hard. It's a little uncomfortable right now, but I can do it.
How long did it take each of you to stop, or if you ever used the term, my marriage failed versus the marriage ended? How long did it take you to transform from feeling like a failure to feeling like, you know what, I'm a woman whose marriage did not last?
5 years.
It took 5 years to stop calling it a failure.
5. I know
Mercedes?
exactly.
I didn't consider it as a failure.
Good for you.
I felt like I started taking my independence back of who I am. So I felt like I was a survivor. Like I'm finally making a decision I personally want to do, and no one has coerced me, no one has convinced me. It's what I want, and I don't care if you don't like it. I don't care if you want to stay. I want out. I'm gone. It doesn't matter, because both of those, I was out. I'm the one who said I'm out. You know, it wasn't the other way around. So for me, I didn't feel like it was failure. I just felt like, you know what, somebody got to pull the cord or I'm not going to make it.
And that's such an important distinction to make, because everyone's experience is different. Were you this is my independence, or had to recover from feeling like it was a failure, LaNise?
It was a little bit of both. I had people, like my dad was like, you are not a failure. This is just something that happened to you, because I was afraid that he was going to feel like that. You know, in my brain, I'm like, my dad walked me down the aisle. He gave me away. I'm scared I'm going to hurt him. And my mom was like, you're not going to hurt your dad. And I was like, yes, I am. I'm going to hurt my dad. And he
I
was
didn't
like,
tell my daddy for a long time.
I didn't want to tell my dad.
I think I told my mom before.
I did the same thing. I told my mom, and my mom was like, do you want to tell your dad? And I'm like, no. And it just got to a point where I had no other way. I had no other thing to do but to tell my dad.
Yeah.
And once I did, he was just, I'm crying profusely, and he's like, is she okay? Is something wrong with her? Like, he had no idea. And when I told him, he was so comforting, so loving, and I was like, okay.
Once a daddy's girl, always a daddy.
Yeah.
Shout out to the daddies.
Yes.
I never had that.
Yeah.
I didn't have a mom or a dad. So my mom died at 11, my dad died at 22. So those experiences.
So you had a friend group, therapist, sister friends,
I
all those
didn't
things.
have those, yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about, and Mercedes, you've touched on this a little bit, but I also want to hear the expert sort of point of view of the steps, the intentional steps that it takes to bounce back financially. Because sometimes there's debt, there's tax implications, there's, the untangling of all these assets, all the things, and still showing up for these kids, depending upon how they are, so that they don't feel like everything is falling apart.
Right. So the first thing I say is, if you want to heal, you can't heal what you don't acknowledge. So a lot of times we like to turn a blind eye to finances, and I'm like, we can't get away from this. Like, that's how you're living. So that's the first thing I say. We cannot just ignore it. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is, we walk through, what are all of your finances? What are all of the things? Because if we're not going to ignore it, we need to write it all out. So we write it all out. We really get to the root of, okay, this is what you have at the end of every month. And if you need to adjust for just a season, not forever, just for a season, then we'll do that. Does that mean you might need to get a second job? Do you feel comfortable with that? Like, what are some other things that you can do to have income coming in, so that you're not away from your kids, or that you can provide for just a little bit, differently for a short amount of time? So we really outline it all. I'm like, okay, what's this? All right, so do we need this? Do we need to get rid of this? Do we need to add this? Like, if your ex was the owner of Netflix, for example, do you want Netflix back? Let's think about it.
There's all the things.
All the things. Do you need 10 different streaming services? Probably not. Let's figure out how we can, tighten up a little bit and save
start
some
building
money.
up a savings account.
So that's what we do together.
How did you tell your children? And if you feel comfortable sharing, I mean, were they little kids? Were they middle schoolers? How did you tell your kids? Because without going into too much detail, I'll never forget that day.
Me
that
either.
conversation.
I still remember it.
One of the toughest days.
Mine's is a little different.
Yeah.
I was pregnant when I went through a divorce. So my whole life changed. I was 9 months pregnant, 32 weeks pregnant, almost 9 months. And then I didn't have no money. So I had to figure out how I was going to eat and feed my baby now. Had to find a new job, because I didn't have a job. He took all the money. So now I had to rebuild and find a job. I couldn't get a job because I'm pregnant. So I just sat and waited.
Did you move in with family?
No, I was in the city by myself. My family was back home in Florida. So I had no support. But
So to the woman who may be listening, who is in that situation,
that was me.
The first step,
I will honestly say, acknowledge what's going on around you. Because I kept acting like it wasn't happening, like it was a bad dream, like it was going to be over. And reality kicked in that, no, this is really happening. And every day was a new day that I had to figure out something. So I actually wrote down what I see myself as after I have my baby. I didn't care if it was in 3 months, 1 month.
So at what point did you get the job?
My daughter was 5 weeks old. I got a job working at the bank where I bought my home, built my home from.
Wow, that's
So
powerful.
I
That's
actually
powerful.
went to my job interview with my baby in the carrier.
Wow, that's bold.
And she told me, she was like, I'm here for Mercedes. And I was like, oh, that's me. I grabbed my baby. She was like, oh, this won't be long, and walked off.
Oh, wow.
And I said, ma'am, you didn't even look at my resume yet. And you know what she said? Well, you could go, she said, you can go sit over there. I said, okay. With my suit on, I said, Lord, give me favor.
I know that's right.
And she sat down, she said, why do you want the job? Clearly you need money. And I was like,
oh my.
I said, well, no. And I gave her my pitch. By the end of that whole conversation, she hired me. She said, when can you start? I said, I could start tomorrow. She said, no, we need to find you a babysitter. You know what she did? She called where her kids were, and that's when I said that's favor. Because she called where her kids went to daycare and asked, I need a favor. Can you have her?
For
I
a
want to
monthly.
hire this woman. Can she have her baby there? She said, how old is the baby? I said, 5 weeks. She said, oh, we take 6 weeks. I said, well, I can wait 4 more days.
Right.
She's about to be 6 weeks.
weeks,
And the
yeah.
lady said, can you start Monday? And I said, yes, ma'am.
I feel like the teachable moment there, and I apologize to interrupt
you're
it, but is be honest
Yes.
about what your needs are,
Yeah.
right? Stop
Yes.
sitting silently.
And don't take excuse.
Yeah, don't take no, don't take excuses, but be honest, because if you hadn't just been as honest as, you know, taking the baby, there wouldn't have been the opportunity to get that help.
I just needed the help.
Yeah.
I knew this job couldn't pay for my big old house, though. But I knew I needed. Remember I said I wrote it down?
Well,
I
I-
wrote down what I saw my life as when
Yeah.
I had the baby. And it was immediately having a job. I
Yeah.
didn't care how old she was. I just knew I'm going to get a job. And I kept trying. And when I finally got it, I was faithful to that job.
Yeah.
Now mine
Big
was
step.
I
What
had
did it
30
take?
days. I had 30 days after my divorce to find a job because I was a project manager for MCI. I don't want to get into that part, but
Yeah.
I was a project manager. I got a divorce. I had 30 days. I went to the school system. I was making $19,000 with 2 degrees. Like, so I had to get on welfare. So I had to do welfare. And so I was like, wow,
And
this
had
is
you ever had any kind of government assistance
No,
before?
no.
How hard was it, or was it? Because at that point,
You
you
know
were just
what?
trying to feed these kids.
Yeah, I had to feed the kids. I mean, it wasn't that hard for me because God will never let you be broken in front of people. So nobody ever knew that I was on that, right? And I'm sitting here like, how do I get out of this rut here? And so then I filed bankruptcy. I did what you did. I went through this. I said, I can't manage this. You know what? I can't do it. So I filed bankruptcy. And everybody looks like that is like such a shame. You have to do what you have to do to get where you need to go. And then I started rising up in the ranks in the school district, and now I have the best job ever. But it's just like sometimes, like you said, you got to stop ignoring things. You have to put things on the table and start really assessing your life. Where do
Yeah.
I want to go?
Right.
And that's, you got to do it.
And
You
that's
have to
what we're
be
talking
honest.
about, all of these different steps. And there's no cookie cutter way to doing it, right, LaNise? I mean, every woman's going to have, every man's going to have their own journey. But just give me a couple of critical things that must happen out the gate. You talked about the finances and being honest, and that sort of getting on the path to believing in yourself again. A couple of other important strategies.
So the
for
first one I would
recovering.
say is distractions. A lot of people put distractions in place instead of actually doing the work. So you can't sit there and be like, I'm going to do this and this and this, and you're like, you still got to work on you.
Yeah, you're still not
You're
doing
still
the work.
not doing the work.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing I say. The other one I would say is be mindful of the people that are around you. Every friend is not your friend.
Yeah.
And you're
And quit
going
telling
through
people
a
your
huge
business.
transition right now. You can't tell everyone your business.
business
Yeah.
at
You
all.
can't. Even if you have friends, if you have friends in your friend group, they may tell your business, right? So you got to keep some stuff to yourself.
Yeah.
We can't go out and say, guess what, everybody? I went and bought a car. No, be quiet. Say nothing
Right.
right now.
Yeah.
Stop
Yeah.
talking.
Yeah.
So those
And
are
just-
some of the
That's good.
major things that I tell people. And also live your life. Like, don't just, I'm not one coach that's like, we're going to cry all the time. We're going to cry every day. Like, we're not going to cry every day. We're going to actually do something, because if you cry, you're not, I mean, crying is good. Don't get me wrong. I always say our tears are prayers to God. So I want you to cry. I want you to feel your feelings, but I want you to get out and experience life.
Yeah.
And so I'm
Something
always
new.
encouraging it.
Give me something new that you started doing after the divorce that you'd never done before. For me, that was painting.
Mine was media. Media.
Something new. It was journaling. I never
Journaling.
journaled.
Ah.
I never. never expressing my emotions to anybody because of how I was raised. I come from humble beginnings, so we don't talk about that type of stuff. That's not
compartmentalized.
We don't do that.
Yeah.
I come from a place where my mom or my brother would be like, put your tears in the bucket and let it flow. And on to the next. Like, just keep on going. And I realized that life, you can keep on going. So my whole life, I never had somebody I can talk to and confide and say, hey, I'm going through this. I didn't have that. So I didn't even know how to do that.
Would you recommend people that not to do that, though?
Do not do that.
Gotcha. Okay.
Because it was, when you said what helped, the journaling helped me. That's the only way, because that's the only way I knew how to feel comfortable expressing myself without telling people my business. Because
not being judged.
Yeah. Like, who do you talk to that can understand what you're going through in that moment? You don't have that circle around you.
Right.
So you're in it by yourself.
LaNise, tell me something you did not start doing until after the divorce.
Can I give you two things?
Absolutely.
So the first one is coloring. I went to an
Really?
event. Coloring. Yep. I went to an event and I actually took a coloring class. And I was like, oh, this is fun.
With the crayons, you took a class to learn how to color.
It was fun though.
Really?
It was
Okay,
so
okay,
many
okay.
people yes, it was very therapeutic. It was so many people in the room.
Yeah.
I met people in the room. We were over here like, oh, so what are you coloring? Oh, I'm coloring this. Let's trade.
Interesting.
So it was so much fun. Coloring was just great. And then the other thing that I did was do things by myself. I was so scared of like, what are people gonna say?
Oh yeah.
What is
it's like
this? What
going
is
out
this?
to eat by yourself type of
Yes.
situations.
So I
gotcha.
would go out by myself and just eat, and I would call it table for one. And I would get a table and just sit and people watch. And that was so much fun. I would pay attention, and I'm like, oh, this is great.
Yeah.
I loved it. So I really enjoyed those.
Who is dating now?
I'm dating.
Yes.
And it's fun. It's a little different now.
Yeah.
You got a lot more things.
Because I just want to remind folks, you're 10 years out.
I'm 10 years out.
Okay.
So it's, it's a little different now. I'm like,
Honey.
oh, this is,
Yeah.
people are
Wait, I'm
a
not even
little
going to say
different.
that,
Yeah.
but I'm
So
dating on
it's-
TV.
Right.
It is different, but I am dating and I'm open, right? Like I'm not like, oh, I don't want to ever do it again. I would love to be married again. I loved being a wife. You talked about that. I'm a huge nurturer, so I love it, and I would absolutely welcome that in my life.
Yeah, Mercedes.
I'm actually not dating.
Not dating by choice.
By
Just
choice.
busy, or still trying to figure some things out before you.
I know myself. I figured it out because prior to a little backstory, my second marriage, we were already separated when my son was 6 months. So technically, we were not together, but we didn't get finalized until 2 years ago. So I was a single mom, but married for several years.
Because it takes a while.
So I was actually accustomed to being single. I didn't look at the men that was around. I was focused on rebuilding. And now that I finally have freedom, I tried dating last year, and people gonna get mad. It's piss in the dating pool.
Oh wow. Okay. Well,
It's
there's
peeing.
Okay. Got it. Okay.
And it is not.
It is.
I'm talking about from.
It
the
is a
top
bit littered at
1%.
times, but there are opportunities to recover.
Yeah, there is opportunities. I have wonderful friends if y'all need something.
Yeah,
too.
well,
Don't
you
get
can
on
share.
here and tell you that
share,
you got
you know?
lip, and you know how long I've been divorced. I mean, I want everybody to
Calling
hear.
them out.
Well, look, I got some friends.
Look, I
I'll
do
share with all of us.
Yeah.
Okay, she
No,
can share with all of us.
Lori, I'm open too. So.
I want to hear about later. I mean, obviously, we just got to watch on Netflix to see how it's going. But how did you get to the point where you were like, oh, I'm so sad. Oh, I'm feeling better. Oh, I think I'm ready to date. Oh, I think I'll date on TV. Because that's a whole recovery.
That was a whole leap, right?
Yeah, give me the short version.
The short version was everybody was like, well, you know, they call me Rich Auntie Lori. They was like,
Yeah.
Rich Auntie Lori, there's this show coming out. It's about dating. I'm like, I'm not going to be dating on TV. I barely date in public, right? And so they were like, I'm going to submit your name. So it was my baby Bianca B. She submitted my name to Netflix, and I had about 10 interviews. And they were like, you would be fun to watch, right?
Yeah.
And so,
Oh, yes.
and so I went on these dates, and they just weren't my people. And so it's like, I know what I put in the universe. It just didn't come to me on that show.
Okay.
You know what I mean? But I am still open. I am still in the dating. So if anybody's watching this, Rich Auntie Lori is still open to dating. But yeah, but I mean, I'm not going to put the negative thing out there like it's a piss pool, because there is some amazing people. I know, but there's some amazing people out there, and we're going to bring that good energy here. We're all going to have a great mate.
I think they need to be healed. That's the problem.
There is
a
a
lot of
healing.
men. So that's why I say it like that. Where I know there are a lot of fine men out there that are available, but they don't even know what they want.
We don't just want fine.
No, I'm saying like I'm talking about from emotional to spiritual,
right.
even
Everybody's got some work to do.
I'm one
right?
of those people that, are you going to take out my trash? Don't take me out on a date right now. I want to know, are you that man that will show up for me? I don't really care about what you can provide financially, but there's the men that don't even want to do that part either. It's
I understand.
like
Different show.
Oh,
so
yeah.
we're obviously we're walking that one into a different show. I want to give just the last few seconds to you about. Don't start dating right away, right?
No.
You kind of touched on it.
Yeah.
Do not dive right back
not.
in. That first one really just, bless his heart. That's just the rebound dude.
Right.
I almost said kid. That's just the rebound.
And I'm not going to be a rebound too.
Right. And you might be somebody's rebound. So we're not doing rebound, but tell folks just quickly how important it is just to
Be by
get
yourself.
yourself.
Absolutely. It is the
Get
most
to know
important
you.
thing you can do. You need to get to know you, because if you don't know you, someone else is going to tell you who you are.
Or you're going to be right back in
Say
there.
that again. Girl.
If you do not know you, someone else will tell you who you are.
Yeah.
So you can't
Yes.
jump from, okay, I'm divorced and now I'm going to jump into a new relationship. You don't know who you are. You
Yeah.
don't know what you're going to accept now. You haven't had time to process what happened.
Yeah.
And more importantly, we haven't touched on, you haven't had time to forgive yourself. That is a big thing that I work with my clients on, is you have to not only forgive that person, but forgive yourself for things you accepted when you knew that you should not have.
Yeah.
And the places you've gone, and just everything
And the
you have to
lessons
do
learned.
that. So I
LaNise,
tell people that.
Tell people the name of your book again and where they can find it.
Well, the name of my book is called It Takes Courage to Do This, How to Remove the Mask and Break Up with Heartbreak. And you can find me on Instagram at TheLoveCheerleader, or you can go to my website, www.thelovecheerleader.com.
Gotcha. Mercedes, is there anything, or you don't want to share nothing because you don't want folks sliding in your DM. But this, right?
I don't know. I'm open to what God has for me.
Absolutely.
I'm very open, but right now I'm on a mission, and that mission, if it does not include that man, then I'm okay with that.
Gotcha.
I like that.
But
Fair
I'm
enough.
open to it. But
So we're not giving out an IG just yet.
you can. You can follow me on Instagram. It's Mercedes E. Smith, and I do luxury transportation with the Sprinter. So that's Luxury Levels Transport. You guys can follow me on Instagram, all social media. It's Luxury Levels Transport.
Gotcha. Okay. And Lori, quickly, where can people find Rich Auntie, Great Dimples, Later Daters, the short version, because that's a whole lot. The
No,
short
because
version,
actually
where's
I'm Gray Dimples before I'm
That's it.
anything. You can follow me on Instagram at Gray, that's Grey Dimples, like Great Dimples. TikTok at Gray Dimples, and Facebook at Lori, Lori, Hanford, Hanford. And my website is www.richauntielori.com. It's under
Wonderful.
construction.
And you can find me on the Portia Show weekdays, Monday through Friday, 1 o'clock, 7 p.m. on Fox Soul. And we'd love to hear your feedback and love to hear if you learned something. Drop some comments in the social media, because we'd love to hear what you learned from these amazing ladies. Thank you so much for your candor, for your time. Yes, indeed. Thank you so much. Go back and watch the Portia Show episode with these three as well. Go to PortiaShow.com. Incredible conversation. And I learned a lot. I hope you did too. We'll see you next time on Portia Raw and Real. And then we'll see you weekdays on Portia.
Yeah,
Take care.
we're going to get a picture real quick. Y'all are good. No, because you know I do this for a living. Y'all good.
And that's a wrap. And that's a wrap.